Han. I'm student coordinator at the CAPI Center. And welcome to the first CAPI student events. CAPI stands for Center for Asia Pacific Initiatives. And first, our topic today is about business culture and working manners in East China. And now first let's welcome Helen Landstone to introduce our research center a bit. Helen is the Associate Director of CAPI.
Thank you, Han. So welcome everybody. My job is to welcome you and to maybe give you a little bit of information about the center, because we find over the years that students don't know about us as much as we would like students to know about us. So this is my opportunity to let you know. We're the first research center on campus, and we focus our research on the Asia-Pacific region. Some of the things that might interest you students, we have a lot of events during the course of the academic year, conferences, workshops, and most of them are open and available to students free of charge. So that's something, and if you go to our website, this isn't our website, this is a PowerPoint, but if you Google CAPI and come to our website, there's a drop-down that gives events and up-and-coming events. For example, on the 16th and 17th, we've got a conference that we're hosting to look at the 75th anniversary of the Nanjing Massacre, and we're having a speaker on the night of Friday evening, and then all day Saturday we're having panel presentations and discussion groups, and then we're finishing off with a premiere film of Flowers of War we're going to show on campus. So that's open to you guys, free of charge. You can come, you can have lunch, you can have coffee breaks, it's all part of it. And you can come and go if you've got work to do and you can't give off your whole day, just come for part of it. We love to see you here. The other thing that our center might be useful for you, we do publishing, and usually during the course of the year we'll publish a couple of occasional papers as well as conference proceedings. The occasional papers you can find on our publications list through our website, and those are all free. You can download them free of charge. So again, cutting edge research that might be useful for papers or whatever. Other things, we have a vibrant internship program. So we send UVic students abroad to work with non-governmental organizations in the Asia Pacific. We have a couple of student fellowships each year that provide you with travel money to get to the area. And we have an essay competition. So all for you. So take advantage of it. It's we love to have students come to our events, and we welcome you. Come and find us. We're over in the Sedgwick building, and we're always open if you want to pop your noses in and have a look. Okay? Han, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. And now Dr. Mary-Yoko Brannen, who is the chair of Gerslowski of East Asia and also the international business professor at the UVic Business School. And she is going to deliver a brief presentation, compare the difference between the East Asia and North America in business practice. So let's welcome Dr. Brannen.
Hi, yeah, so I kind of straddle two offices. I have one in Sedgwick, in the Center for Asia Pacific Initiatives, and I'm actually the Japan chair, East Asia Japan chair, just so that you don't think of me as also a China chair and a Korea chair, etc. But my expertise is in Japan, although I've worked in China and Hong Kong and in Korea. So I do know a bit about the rest of Asia and how it interacts with Japan especially. I also have an office on the 4th floor of the business school, and my area is in strategy and international business. So I thought that what I could add for today is just to set the groundwork on what I have come to understand as the key dimensions in which North America and Asia, East Asia in particular, are distinct and where the biggest areas of difference are. So I thought I'd start with that. And I'm going to see if this works from a distance. I'm not sure. Okay, so I think more and more these days, especially in business, people kind of wonder if culture really matters, because people speak English as the lingua franca in organizations, and people are wearing similar clothing. were brought together by the internet, etc. And so it's sort of like this couple, I don't know if they're going on their first honeymoon or their second honeymoon or what, but they're at a travel agency and they wanted to decide where to go, Rio, Paris, or Tokyo. They might as flip a coin, you know. Doesn't really matter. Because a lot of artifacts these days, especially in business, look alike. So from a distance, cultures look a lot alike. But as this quote from Fujisawa, the co-founder of Honda Motor Company, says, Japanese and American management is 95% the same and differs in all important aspects. And so I wanted to just kind of touch on the differences that matter. And a lot of this are things that you don't really understand unless you have what we call high perceptual acuity, that you can tell differences that matter even when from a distance, at the forest level, cultures look the same. So what I thought I'd do is start with a quiz. And if you could just, in your mind, because I don't want to take time for you to do this on paper, but think about what you would say to finish these phrases. When I'm angry, I... Okay. Don't think too hard about it. Just know what you normally do when you're angry. If I don't agree with an idea, when someone in my team has done a good job, your meeting is to, okay. So let's see. Here's a typical Japanese response to these. Compare and contrast what you just said in your mind to these. How many of you said, when I'm angry, I grin and bear it? How many of you don't know what grin and bear it means? So grin and bear it in Japanese is gaman suru, which is a phrase that you learn it when you're a little kid in Japan. Your parents tell you gaman shite kudasai. That means be patient, be patient, be patient. And so it means that if you're angry, you don't show it at all. How many of you said that? You take a walk, or did you go to anger management or something like that? Yeah, so anyway, how many of you said you'd show it somehow? You'd yell or scream, yeah, something like that. Yeah, because, in North America in general, people pay a lot of money if they don't know how to yell and scream when they're angry. They pay a lot of money to psychiatrists just to say, I hate my mom, right? Because we think that if we can't say, I hate my mom, then we're going to die of a heart attack or something like that. That physically we're going to get ill. Whereas in Japan, they think if you say, I hate my mom, then all hell's going to break loose in the family and the society, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very different orientation toward conflict and harmony, right? So if I don't agree with an idea, how many of you would say it's interesting and that you'll think about it? Raise your hand. Yeah. So this is a typical Japanese response. They'll say, 面白いですね. 考えておきます. I'll think about it. And what it means, and most Westerners, when Japanese say something like this, feel, what do you think they feel? If someone said, I think about it, it's interesting, I think about it. Yeah.
I think they're probably unsure.
They're unsure. That's a real fair way of thinking about this. How many of you would think they're bullshitting, that they really think it's stupid, and they're not going to think about it at all? Yeah, you would, right? Yeah, most North American business people think that. They're not going to think about it, and they don't think it's a good idea. But actually, it's a neutral response, and they may actually come back to you on it, but they don't want to tell you immediately what they think about it. Just like they don't like to open presents in front of you. If you give them a present, generally they set it aside. Same difference. They don't want to show negative emotions in opening the present. When someone, and what did you say actually to, if you don't agree with an idea? How many of you would say you don't agree? Yeah. And why would you say you don't agree? What's the deal?
Maybe if you say you kind of just to get a mutual understanding between you and that person, so that you're on the same page, not necessarily to win their idea, but just so you can better understand But at least in Canada, that's what we do, like in group meetings and stuff like that.
Better understanding. Okay, how about you?
I'd say it's interesting, but I would be bullshitting probably.
But those of you who would say what you actually think, why are you doing that? Why would you actually say what you think? Don't we do that all the time? We brainstorm. We say, let's all get all the ideas out on the table. Well, brainstorming is not something that works well in Asia in general. Because basically what you're doing is that you're providing a cauldron for conflict. Basically, if you brainstorm, lots of different ideas come out, and it means that you're not going to agree on these. And the idea in the West is that it's the survival of the fittest, that you get lots of ideas out there, and through throwing out a lot of ideas, the best idea can rise up to the top. Right? Very different understanding of how you go around getting good ideas out. In Asia, generally, you go one-on-one to get ideas if you want individual ideas to surface, not in a group setting. Okay. When someone in my team has done a good job, how many of you said you'd reward the group? You would. So if you're taking a class over here at the business school and you do a group assignment and I give you all the same group grade and you were the one that worked the hardest, you'd feel good about that.
Yeah, actually right now in my group, well, we make sure we like equally distribute the work, so we all like celebrate together.
Do?
Yeah, we do.
Because I hear all the time from students
It
that
does
they
not
don't
always
think
work
it's
out.
fair.
Yeah, it does
They'd
not
like-
always work out that way, but yeah.
They'd like to evaluate each team member in terms of what their contribution is. Does that sound familiar to you? Yeah, generally in individualistic oriented societies, when individual input is not recognized, then motivation goes down for the team. And generally in group-oriented societies, when individuals are recognized, the group output goes down because people are embarrassed in front of each other. But they would prefer to have the group rewarded. And finally, a group meeting is to, how many of you said formalize a decision? Hear what the decision is. None of you. How many of you said to get something done? Some action item. Yeah. Very, very different, right? So here are a couple of countries that I'm real familiar with. I'm an American by nationality. I was born and raised in Japan, though. But you can see that there are huge differences almost on every single one of these. And Canada is very similar to the U.S. Here's another country that I'm very familiar with, having just lived there for the last 3 years. I worked there for about 15 years. So in France, and Canada represents both of these, you have a very, very different orientation in terms of these. So basically, countries really differ on how they show emotion. Italy, watch out. If you're Canadian, Canadians are a little, I don't have them here, but Canadians are a little bit more conflict averse than the people from the U.S., more like the UK, actually. So you wouldn't feel comfortable in this part of the world. Okay, and Japan is very, very much conflict averse, and so not showing your frustration at work. That's why you go socialize after work. Korea is like this too. China is a little bit different. In fact, on these, and this was a study done quite a long time ago, China, mainland China, is a lot more open to showing emotions at work or anywhere else, vis-a-vis Korea and Japan. Okay, on responsibility, responsibility is if you give group praise or individual praise. So again, U.S. and U.K. are very, very much individualist societies, whereas all of the Asian countries are much more group-oriented. And again, China is an outlier there. China is, at the present, because we have a situation where we have people that are in their 30s and 40s who are from the one-child-only regime, and also after the Cultural Revolution, you get more individualistic behavior in China than you do in Korea and Japan. Okay, so in a good meeting, North Americans polled said a decision is made, action. Majority of French people polled said we debate different viewpoints and maybe a decision is never made. Majority of the Japanese polls said we put a formal stamp on the decision. So culture really does matter in organizations, and in today's world, It used to be that the place where you would meet other cultures is in the other culture itself, right? When you take a boat on a long expedition, et cetera, et cetera. But these days, the global meeting ground is organizations. So multinational corporations is where the most complex cultural interactions is happening. And so organizations is a place where a lot of conflict will come across. And it's really, so you would say that in organizational settings, culture does really matter. And for me, the most important aspects in which cultures vary in organizations is one on context, and this is from Edward Hall, but the notion of high and low context cultures. So high context cultures are cultures like Asian cultures that pay a lot of attention on the surrounding aspects of an interaction. Oftentimes the things that you don't see. So the seating order, for example, who's older than the other. The reason why in Asian countries they pay a lot of attention on business cards is because without the business cards, people don't understand where you fit into a hierarchy and your relationship with them, if they're more senior than you, et cetera, et cetera. So without the business card, they really don't know how to address you. Right? And even in terms of how they use their words and how they conjugate their verb endings. So all of that is high context. Low context cultures pay less attention to surrounding aspects of an interaction and much more attention to the actual word being spoken. In fact, a very quick acid test to understand if you're in a low context culture or a high context culture is the number of lawyers per capita in that country. Because the lowest context culture is the US. They have the highest number of lawyers per capita. And in fact, a big artifact of that is that in low context cultures, contracts are seen as binding. And you're thinking, yeah, so isn't that the same everywhere in the world? No. So in high context cultures, contracts are really to indicate that you've agreed to work with each other. You've agreed on a social relationship. And it can be changed. Well, you know, life is full of changes. So it's not binding in the way that in low context cultures it really is. Another really great way to see if one is low or high context is just look at television commercials. And if you know within the first 10 seconds what they're selling, you're in a low context culture. Lots of words, lots of bar charts and whatnot. And if you have no clue what's being sold, you're probably in a high context culture. So here's an example of high context communication. Right? Mr. Jones says it, he's the boss, he says, it looks like we're going to have to keep the production line running on Saturday. Hamasaki-san says, I see. Jones says, can you come on Saturday? Yes, I think so. That'd be a great help. Yes, Saturday is a special day, Hamasaki-san said. How do you mean? It's my son's birthday. Mr. Jones says, how nice, I hope you'll all enjoy it. And Hamasaki-san says, thank you, I appreciate your understanding. So do you think Hamasaki-san's coming on Saturday? No. Do you think Mr. Jones knows that? No. So it really matters, you see. So Hamasaki-san indirectly has said, I really can't come on Saturday, please understand. And so their understanding is really quite the opposite. So here's how countries play out along this. Let's see, we have more here. I think I have a few more. Okay, so US, UK, Canada, low context. Japan here is China are very high context. Okay. And then the next one is power distance that I think is very important. And so power distance just means to the extent that countries are more egalitarian, so and flat in terms of their organization, and hierarchical is the other extreme, much more vertical relationships being important. And this is from a 2002 study of the GLOBE project, where they got at this dimension by asking, in this organization, subordinates are expected to obey their boss versus question their boss when in disagreement. And the second one is, in this organization, a person's influence is primarily based on one's ability and contribution to the organization versus the authority of one's position. And here's how countries line up with this dimension. Okay, so again, Korea, Japan, very hierarchical, China, especially post Mao, a little bit less, a little bit more egalitarian. Like my Japanese girlfriend says, it's better to marry a Chinese man because he lets you do more things. And he's probably able to cook. So anyway, there's quite a distinction between Korea, Japan, and China along that line as well. And then finally, my last slide is I want you to just understand that when we talk about cultures, we're really talking about just aggregate cultural differences. We're talking about just plus or minus 2 deviations from the mean, right? So we're saying the standard response when we look at everyone in that culture is around the mean. But understand that there are the tails of the mean, so the people who are very different from the mean. And so if we're comparing China and Canada, some people might overlap completely within, like you were saying, you're very conflict averse and you don't look Korean. But, but you have certain values that mesh quite nicely. And so we have to keep in mind that there's variance in cultures as well. Okay, so that's really all I have to say. And now I guess what you've decided is that you're going to let people go to table to table?
No, we also invite like 2 student speakers, okay. And they may introduce themselves first and then talk about their personal experience when they're in China, like Hong Kong or Japan. So first, let's welcome Billy to talk about Japan a bit.
Sure, should I come up there?
Yeah, please.
Hi guys, my name's Billy. I'm a 4th year business student at UVic here, and yeah, last year I spent about 6 months in Japan from September to this March, and first time I've ever been there. I only spoke very little Japanese, but if you guys have any questions about Japan, about the experiences, what you should do, what you should learn before going there, feel free to ask me. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy. Okay, Andrew, could you please introduce yourself, please?
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Andrew. I'm a 4th year history student at UVic. I just got back from a year on exchange in Hong Kong, and I guess I was asked to come here today just to give a brief little introduction and also just to mention a couple personal experiences of mine that I thought would be very important. And so I guess, thank you very much for the engaging speech. I'd like to say that I agree with pretty much everything that was brought up, and just for me, and the advice that I could offer to you guys is, if you're planning on living in a foreign country or working in a foreign country, the best advice I would have is to observe and be aware of social norms, but also to practice and respect them and understand those social norms. Yeah, just like a personal example for me was when I first moved to Hong Kong, I was moving into my flat, and it was probably, the whole flat could easily fit into this room, probably 3/4 of this room, and it was for 4 people. So it was a tiny little flat. And I got back home probably in the first week that I was there, and I walked into the elevator, and the elevator was maybe like this and like that. So I walk into the elevator, and I'm standing there, and I press the button, and another man comes in, and he comes right up beside me, and immediately we start talking. He's probably about this tall, and we were talking like, his face was probably like 6 to 8 inches away from mine, and that was the first time I realized that the personal space that people have in different places is different all over the world. And so here I'm used to having discussions with people, and they'll stand 3 or 4 feet away and we'll have a discussion. But in Hong Kong, when you talk to somebody, you talk right up close. And the first thing he asked me, after we got through names and how long have you been here, oh, I just moved in. And then he wanted to know, oh, how much rent do you pay? And I thought, whoa, that's crazy. Like here, someone you just met would never really ask that. But in Hong Kong and in a lot of places, it's something that, it's a perfectly valid and socially valid question that you can ask someone that you just met. And so that was the first time I really became aware, like, everything here is, the social values are completely different, and the way people interact and what people find important is different. So I told him how much rent we paid. He laughed a little bit and said, oh, I pay a little bit less, and he told me, and the lift stopped, and he got out, and that was my first experience with that. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, so now, you guys can decide which country you're going to. Oh, do you want to talk something about it? Oh, cool.
I won't go over there. I'll just stand over here and talk.
Okay, sure.
So
Thanks.
I came here as an audience, but then because the person representing Korea was not here, I'll just step into that role. Right now I'm a student studying philosophy at UVic, going for my 3rd degree. And I also have a business degree, and for my co-op, I actually did 3 co-ops back to back in Korea. So I'm originally from Korea, but I was able to go to Korea and work for this 800 employee company, and it was a very interesting and fun experience for me. So not only did I learn the whole business etiquette and the whole business environment of Korea, I also did international business with Japanese companies while I was in Korea. So there's some very significant differences between Korean and Japanese business etiquette. One quick example is in the Korean company, the president is the highest member of the organization. So when you get a phone call, you say, Mr. President. Okay? When I was talking to the president of the Japanese company, the secretary would never say Mr. President in Japan. They would just say, oh, Sam, or Tanaka, or they won't even say Mr. or San. San is the Mr. in Japanese. So to me, I felt like the secretary was very disgruntled, was not happy, was talking down on her own president of the company. But that's just different culture. So in Korea, always you have to say Mr. to the president. In Japan, the culture is to talk down on their side, their employees, and always put a lot of respect for the guests and the people visiting the company. So those kind of very small tweaks and differences were very interesting for me. And I was in Korea and also working in Japan for 5 years. So if you have any questions, I'd love to tell you about my experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.